My wife laughed and told a room full of friends I'd never catch her if she cheated. Everybody heard a punchline except me. Eric Dalton's house was doing what it always did on a Saturday night. Too loud, too bright. People packed shoulder to shoulder like the walls were closing in. Music thumped through the floor. Someone had dragged a speaker onto the kitchen counter like it was a trophy. Megan had one hand on her drink, the other resting on my arm like we were a brochure. She looked good. She always did. And I didn't say that like a compliment. More like a fact the world kept confirming. A guy I barely knew was telling a cheating story, messy and stupid. The kind of thing people treat like entertainment because it didn't happen to them. He did voices. People laughed on cue. Someone slapped the countertop hard enough to rattle cups. I stood there with that neutral smile you learn as a husband. Present, polite, not owning the conversation. Megan leaned in closer, eyes bright, enjoying the show. Then someone said, "Man, how do you not get caught?" A few people chimed in with jokes about phones and locations and dumb mistakes. Megan took a sip, turned toward me like she was about to show me off. She smiled wide and said, "If I ever cheated, you'd never find out." She didn't hesitate, didn't soften it, delivered it like a punchline she knew would land. The room erupted. Eric laughed the loudest, open mouth, head back, like it was the funniest thing he'd heard all month. A couple women shrieked like it was spicy. One guy pointed at me, like, "Sorry, bro," still laughing. I felt my face arrange itself into something acceptable. I kept it there. The kind of smile you wear so you don't become the guy who ruins the vibe. The guy who can't take a joke. The guy everyone remembers for the wrong reason. I looked at Megan. She was still smiling, eyes on me, waiting for my reaction like it was a game. I gave her the smallest laugh I could manage. A single exhale. Nothing that matched the room. Inside, something shifted, quiet, mechanical, like a lock turning. On the drive home, she was relaxed, sitting reclined a little, scrolling her phone with her thumb. The dashboard light made her face look calm and unbothered. She hummed along with the radio like we'd just left a normal party. I kept both hands on the wheel. Streetlights slid over the windshield in steady bars. That one sentence replayed in my head, over and over, like a warning siren you can't shut off. Not because it was mean, because it was clean. Confidence. I watched her in my peripheral vision and tried to decide what it was. Arrogance. A test. Or a confession disguised as humor. And no matter which one it was, I knew the same thing. I wasn't going to hear her the same way again. Back home, Megan kicked her shoes off by the entryway like it was any other night. No pause. No tension. No, "You okay?" She walked to the bedroom, already peeling off jewelry, already halfway out of the evening. "Coming to bed?" she called, casual. "In a minute," I said. She didn't push. Just a soft, "Okay." And the door closed. I stayed in the living room with one lamp on, the rest of the house dark. The quiet after a loud party feels like pressure. The kind that makes you hear your own breathing and start making deals with yourself. Her phone sat on the coffee table, face down, slim case, normal object, except it wasn't normal anymore. It was the thing she just held in the car, relaxed and smiling, while my mind ran laps around that sentence. I told myself I wasn't this guy. I wasn't the husband who snoops because he got his ego bruised at a party. I wasn't the paranoid idiot who turns a joke into a trial. Then another thought cut through it, sharper. Denial ruins you slower than the truth. I picked it up like it might bite. The screen lit, her wallpaper, some vacation photos, a smiling, sunburned, trying to look like people with uncomplicated lives. My thumb hovered over the keypad. I knew her password. I'd known it forever. The kind of thing couples share without thinking, until it becomes a weapon in your hand. I typed it in. The phone opened. No alarms. No locked vault. Just her life sitting there waiting. I started simple. Messages. The thread list looked ordinary: friends, family, group chats with too many emojis. I opened the ones that could matter. Read backwards. Looked for gaps. Looked for names I didn't know. Nothing. Instagram DMs. A few replies to story reactions. A friend sending a meme. Megan replied with laughing faces like she had no secrets. Email, promotions, receipts, a dentist reminder, a shipping confirmation for something from Target. Photos, mostly food, dog pictures, selfies, a few shots from the party. I checked recently deleted like my hand had its own brain. Still nothing. I went deeper because nothing didn't calm me down. It irritated me. Search history, maps, call log, deleted calls, app list, battery usage, the places where someone slips up without realizing it. Clean, too clean. 20 minutes in, I was staring at an ordinary marriage living inside a device. Memes, grocery lists, traffic complaints, pictures of dinner. The kind of normal that should have felt reassuring. But it didn't. Felt staged. Like walking onto a movie set after the crew reset everything. No clutter. No mistakes. No human mess. I locked the screen and set the phone back down exactly where it had been, face down, like I could rewind time by respecting the original angle. My chest felt tight, not with panic, something colder. The realization that I'd crossed a line and it hadn't given me relief. I sat there in the lamplight, listening to Megan breathing in the bedroom, and understood the worst part. If she was hiding something, she was disciplined. And if she wasn't, then I just introduced a poison into my own house with my own hands. The next night, Megan fell asleep fast. Same routine, same ease. She turned toward me, said, "Love you," like a habit you don't even taste anymore. Then her breathing smoothed out and the house went still. I lay there staring at the ceiling, counting seconds I didn't need to count. That joke hadn't faded. It hadn't softened with daylight. It had sharpened, like my brain had taken it apart and put it back together into something heavier. Around 2:40 a.m., I slid out of bed without waking her. Bare feet on hardwood. No lights. Just the faint glow from the street outside bleeding through the blinds. Her laptop was on the dining table where she'd left it after paying bills earlier. I picked it up carefully, like it was evidence already, and carried it into the living room. I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel reckless either. I felt methodical. The laptop woke up. Password prompt. I knew that too. Of course I did. I typed it in and watched her desktop appear. Neat folders, clean background image, the kind of order that makes people think you're stable. I clicked through the obvious stuff first. Email. Inbox. Normal. Promotions, work stuff, family threads. I went to send mail. Trash. Spam. Archives. I searched for keywords that made me hate myself. Love. Miss you, hotel. Meet. Baby. Nothing. I opened her browser history. Mostly shopping. Recipes. Random articles. A couple searches for holiday gifts. I checked the dates. I checked the gaps. I checked the same way you check a lock twice when you know it's locked but you don't believe it. Downloads folder. Empty except for PDFs and a few work files. Photos. Organized. Mostly harmless. I right-clicked and looked at details, dates, file info, whatever metadata I could get my hands on, like it might whisper something the thumbnails wouldn't. Nothing. I went through saved passwords, autofill, browser extensions, installed apps, any weird messaging platform, any disguised Vault app, any tool that didn't belong. Everything looked like a person who had nothing to hide. And somehow that was the problem. Because real life isn't that tidy. People leave crumbs. They forget to delete something. They get lazy. They slip. But this wasn't laziness. This was discipline. I opened settings and checked sync accounts. Looked for extra email addresses. Unknown cloud backups. Alternate user profiles. Still nothing. It hit me around 3:08 a.m. Sitting there in the dark with her laptop warm against my palms. If she was cheating, she wasn't careless. She wasn't sloppy. She wasn't the guy at the party with the funny story and the dumb mistake. She was trained. Or experienced. Or both. I closed the laptop and sat there a minute longer, listening to the house. Megan's breathing down the hall. The refrigerator is cycling on. A car passing outside. The absence stopped feeling like reassurance and started feeling like proof. Not proof she was cheating. Proof that if she was, I wasn't built to catch it alone. I didn't announce anything. I didn't accuse. I didn't go fishing with loaded questions like a man looking for permission to explode. I just started watching, not like some cartoon stalker, more like a quiet observer who suddenly realized he'd been living on autopilot. Marriage makes you lazy in small ways. You stop noticing the exact time someone leaves, the exact way they hold their phone, the little patterns that should be invisible when you trust each other. On Monday, she said she was running to the store. Just a quick grocery run. She came back in 45 minutes. Normal. Reasonable. But I watched her set the bags down and slip her phone into her back pocket like it was glued there. On Tuesday, she took a call outside on the patio. When I asked who it was, she didn't miss a beat. Kayla. Her fiancé's being weird again. She laughed, rolled her eyes, stepped back inside like that was the end of it. And maybe it was. But I noticed she didn't call Kayla's name out loud. Not once. She just said it like a label. At dinner, she checked messages and locked her screen the second I looked up. Casual. Smooth. Like she wasn't hiding anything. Just keeping her privacy. I argued with myself while I chewed food I couldn't taste. You're doing this to yourself. Or you're finally seeing what you refused to see. Wednesday, she mentioned a work thing. Late meeting. New project. It's chaos right now. All perfectly believable. She kissed my cheek before she left, the same way she always did, and the kiss was what made my stomach tighten. It was practiced. Automatic. Thursday, she was affectionate. Extra, even. Hand on my shoulder when she passed behind me. A long hug before bed. Soft voice. Warm eyes. I hated how my brain tried to turn it into evidence. Love bombing. Guilt. Or you're just broken now and everything looks like a trick. By Friday, I was tracking times without meaning to. How long she stayed in the bathroom. How often she took her phone when she walked 10 feet to the laundry room. The angle of her screen. The way she muted notifications. None of it was a smoking gun. It was just tight, controlled. And the worst part was, I didn't know if I was uncovering a pattern or manufacturing one. I'd sit at work and catch myself replaying her laugh at Eric's place. The way she'd said it so cleanly, so publicly. I'd imagine the room's laughter as permission she gave herself. Then I'd imagine the alternative. That she'd been joking, and I was the one quietly dismantling our marriage with suspicion. Either way, it was unbearable. Because by the end of that week, the math became simple. I was either wrong and poisoning the best thing in my life, or I was right, and being played by someone confident enough to brag about it in public. And I couldn't live in the middle anymore. By the weekend, I was tired in a way sleep didn't touch. Not exhausted, wired. Like my body was running off a motor my brain couldn't shut down. I tried to do it the right way. I told myself to let it go, to trust my wife, to stop acting like a man who'd lose his mind over one line at a party. But every time I looked at Megan, I heard her voice again. You'd never find out. I realized something ugly. If I kept digging alone, I'd either become obsessed or I'd become numb. Either way, I'd lose pieces of myself I didn't want to lose. So I did the thing I never thought I'd do. I searched for a private investigator. Not the cheesy billboard kind. Not some guy who promised miracles in bold letters. I looked for someone quiet. Someone who didn't sound excited by other people's disasters. That's how I found Thomas Grayson. Tom, his site said. Veteran. Infidelity work. Discreet. No drama. We met at a cafe across town. Far enough that running into anyone we knew would be unlikely. Late morning. A place with low music and too many people pretending they weren't eavesdropping. Tom walked in like he belonged everywhere and nowhere. Mid-50s, lean, calm face, eyes that didn't bounce around. He shook my hand like it mattered, then sat down and waited. Not rushed, not curious, just a present. What's going on? He asked. I stared at my coffee for a second longer than I needed to. Then I told him everything. Eric's party, the cheating story, Megan's smile, the line, the laughter. I told him about the phone, about the laptop, about how clean it all was. I didn't try to justify it. I didn't paint myself as the hero. I just laid it out like facts on a table and let the silence sit where it wanted. Tom listened without flinching. No raised eyebrows. No wow. No judgment. When I finished, he nodded once. If she's careful, he said, you won't find anything. Not the way you're looking. That sentence landed harder than I expected. Because it wasn't dramatic. It was clinical. Like he was telling me a weather forecast. I swallowed. So what do I do? He leaned back slightly, hands folded. Do you want truth or peace? I want one, I said. I'm done with limbo. Tom's eyes held mine like he was checking if I meant it. Okay, he said. Here's how this works. I don't know. I don't accuse. I document. If there's a second life, it leaves traces somewhere. Patterns are hard to hide forever. He pulled a small notepad out, wrote a few things down, names, addresses, basic info. He didn't ask for melodrama. He asked for details that felt like they belonged in a police report. How long? I asked. 5 days, he said. If she's doing something, 5 days is enough to see the shape of it. If she's not, you'll have something solid to sit on instead of this noise. And if you find something? Tom didn't smile. Then you'll have evidence, not feelings. I nodded slowly, the weight of it settling in. I'd come there hoping for relief. What I got was a timeline. He slid a card across the table. Simple. No flashy logo. Just his name and number. Before he stood up, he said one more thing. You're not crazy for reacting to that line, he told me. People don't joke about what they're afraid of losing. They joke about what they think they can get away with. He left without rushing, blending into the crowd like he was built for disappearing. I sat there with the card in my hand, feeling exposed and steadier at the same time. Peace of mind has a price. I just paid the deposit. The 5 days weren't dramatic. That was the problem. They stretched out like punishment, slow, quiet, ordinary, while my body stayed on edge like it was bracing for impact. I still went to work, still answered emails, still nodded through meetings. I became good at pretending I was listening while my mind kept drifting to one question. Where is she right now? At home, I played my part. Dinner, TV, small talk about nothing. Megan moved through the house like she always did. Comfortable, unbothered, humming while she cleaned up, scrolling her phone on the couch with her feet tucked under her. If she noticed something in me, she didn't show it. Or she was too skilled to. The waiting messed with me. It made me second-guess myself in both directions. 1 minute I'd think, you're about to blow up your own marriage because you got rattled at a party. The next minute I'd think, that's exactly how a careful person wins, by making you feel ridiculous for doubting them. Megan laughed at something on her screen one night and held it out to me. Look, she said. This is so dumb. It was a meme. I smiled on cue, like I was rehearsed too. I started imagining the humiliation if Tom came back with nothing. Me sitting across from him while he shrugged. While my bank account was lighter and my trust was worse. I imagined telling myself I'd crossed a line I couldn't cross. That I'd become the kind of man I never respected. The guy who hunts for betrayal because he can't control his own head. But the waiting did something else too. It hardened me. Not in a cruel way. In a practical way. Somewhere around day 3, I stopped picturing myself yelling. Stopped picturing myself begging. Stopped picturing the dramatic confrontation scenes movies love. I started picturing paperwork. Boundaries. A clean cut. Because I understood something important. If the truth was ugly, panic wouldn't help me. It would just give her room to steer the story. To turn my reaction into the main event and her actions into a footnote. And if the truth was nothing, I still had work to do, because my mind had proven it could turn one sentence into a slow internal fire. On day 5, Megan kissed me goodbye in the morning like she always did. See you later, she said. Yeah, I answered. She walked out the door, and for a second, I watched her through the window as she crossed the driveway. The sunlight hit her hair. She looked like my wife. Then she got in the car and drove away, and I realized I didn't feel comfortable. I felt readiness. The phone stayed on my desk all day. Tom hadn't called yet, and every time it buzzed with a random notification, my pulse jumped like my body already knew the shape of what was coming. Tom called late in the afternoon. His voice was the same as it had been in the cafe. Flat, calm, controlled. "We need to meet in person," he said. No build-up. No hint. Just that. "Where?" I asked. "Same place. 30 minutes. I got there early and sat with my back to the wall, coffee untouched. When Tom walked in, he didn't scan the room like a spy. He just moved through it like gravity had already decided where he belonged. He sat down across from me and placed a brown folder on the table. The folder wasn't thick. That's what hit first. Not a mountain. Not chaos. Just a tight stack, clean, organized. My life reduced to paper. He opened it and slid the first photo forward. Megan. Not at a grocery store. Not at work. Stepping out of her car near an apartment building I didn't recognize. Sunglasses on. Hair done. The kind of look you don't wear for errands. Another photo. Her at a florist. Tom tapped the corner of the picture with one finger. Wednesday. Same place. Same time window. He laid down a receipt next. Then another. Then a simple printout, transaction records, dates, amounts. "She buys flowers every Wednesday," he said. "Same florist." I stared at the paper like it was written in another language. Not because I didn't understand it. Because my brain didn't want to. Tom kept going, methodical. "Her regular phone is clean," he said. "Because she doesn't use it for this." He slid a photo toward me. Grainy but clear enough. Megan walking out of a convenience store. Her hand coming out of a small display rack by the counter. Burner phones. Tom didn't call it dramatic. He didn't say the secret second phone like it was a headline. He just said, "She rotates them. Buys prepaid. Tops them up in cash." My throat tightened. I forced myself to keep breathing through my nose. Slow. I wasn't going to give the cafe a show. He placed another set of photos down, Megan entering the apartment building. Megan at the door. Megan stepped inside like she'd done it 100 times. Then the last photo. The door opened. A man pulled her in by the waist. Her face turned up. A kiss. Not friendly. Not accidental. Not something you explain away. The man was tall, dark hair, clean-cut in a generic way. No one I knew. No one I'd ever seen at any of our parties. A stranger with his hands on my wife like it was normal. Tom watched me, not for entertainment, for stability. "You know him?" he asked. "No," I said. My voice came out steady. I didn't recognize it as my own. "His name is Derek Vaughn," Tom said. "Works in marketing. I live there." He flipped one more page in his notes. "Here's the part you need to hear clearly." I looked up. Tom didn't lean in. Didn't lower his voice like he was sharing gossip. He spoke like a man stating a fact. "He thinks she's divorced," he said. "He thinks she's exclusive." That line landed even harder than the photos. Not because it excused her, because it explained the cleanliness, the discipline, the confidence. A double life isn't easier when you're careless. It's easier when you control the narrative for everyone involved. Tom tapped the florist receipts again. "This is how I found it. People can scrub phones and laptops. They can rotate burners. They can lie to a man's face every night and still sleep." He slid the receipt stack slightly closer to me. "But patterns leak. Wednesday flowers. Every week. Same place. That's not romance. That's routine." I stared at Megan's name on the paper and felt something in me go quiet. Not sadness. Not rage. Finality. Tom closed the folder gently, like he respected what it carried. "What do you want to do?" he asked. I didn't answer right away, because in my head I was already seeing the next Wednesday like a date stamped on a calendar. Pattern. A door. A choice. Next Wednesday, Megan played it the same way she always did. "Quick stop after work," she said, grabbing her purse like it was nothing. "Don't wait until dinner." "Okay," I said. No questions. No tone. No tells. She kissed my cheek and walked out. I watched her go like a man watching a train he already knows is leaving. I drove to the address Tom gave me and parked down the block. Different neighborhoods. Older buildings. Quiet streets. The kind of place you don't end up by accident. I waited. Not pacing. Not spiraling. Just breathing and watching the front door. This wasn't about catching her. I already had that. This was about ending it without letting her steer the ending. Her car pulled in right on time. Pattern. She got out, adjusted her hair in the mirror, and walked inside with her head high. No hesitation, no fear, like she belonged there. I counted to 30, got out, and walked to the door. The hallway smelled like someone's laundry detergent and old paint. My steps sounded louder than they should have. I rang the doorbell once. Footsteps. A chain. The door opened a crack and a man's face appeared. Derek. Confused. Irritated. Ready to dismiss whoever I was. "Yeah?" he said. I kept my voice level. "I'm looking for Megan Parker." His eyebrows pulled together. "Who?" I didn't blink. "Megan Parker. My wife." The door opened wider like his hand forgot what it was doing. "That's..." he started, then stopped. Behind him, movement. Megan appeared in the hallway, blouse slightly off at the collar like she'd just fixed it. Her face drained fast, like someone hit a switch behind her eyes. For a second, nobody spoke. The silence had weight, thick enough to choke on. I stepped inside without pushing past him, just enough to make it clear I wasn't leaving. "Don't," Megan said quietly, one hand lifting like she could control me with a gesture. I set the brown folder on the coffee table and opened it like I was clocking into work. Photos, receipts, dates, the florist, the building, the kiss. Derek leaned over them, his confusion turning into something sharper. "What is this?" he said, voice rising. Megan looked at him like he was a stranger. Then she looked at me, eyes glossy, trying to pull emotion into the room and make it the weapon. I didn't give her that. "You were right," I said calm. "I wouldn't have found it alone." Her lips parted. She tried to speak. I kept going. But trained eyes find patterns. And this, I nodded at the folder, is your pattern. Derek's jaw clenched. "You told me you were divorced." Megan flinched, like his words hurt more than mine. I held up a hand, flat, firm. "I'm not here to fight you." I looked Derek dead in the face. "You didn't know. Now you do." Then I looked at Megan, and my voice stayed even because control was the point. "This ends today," I said. "No debate, no story, no rewriting." Megan stepped toward me, reaching. "Please." I took one step back like her touch was poison. "Don't touch me," I said, and in that moment the double life didn't explode. It just stopped. After I walked out of that apartment, everything turned mechanical. Not because I didn't feel anything, because feeling too much would have turned into noise, and noise is how people like Megan survive, by making the aftermath about emotion instead of consequences. I moved into a new place within a week. A clean apartment with bare walls and no shared memories baked into the corners. I bought a bed, a couch, and a set of plates. I kept it simple, functional, quiet. Then I hired a lawyer. I gave him Tom's documentation and told him I didn't want theatrics. I didn't want to ruin her life. I wanted the truth on paper and the exit executed cleanly. Evidence doesn't shout. It just sits there, undeniable. Megan's calls started the first night. At first it was crying. Apologies that sounded like someone reading lines they'd practiced in a mirror. Then it shifted. Justifications. "We were drifting. You've been distant. I didn't think it would." Then blame when she realized I wasn't coming back. "You're really doing this over one mistake?" One mistake. I blocked her number not to punish her, but to stop reopening the wound. Every message was a hook, and I wasn't going to keep bleeding just because she wanted an audience. Tom told me later Derek ended it immediately once he learned the truth. I didn't feel satisfied, just a cold confirmation of what I'd already understood in that living room. She hadn't just betrayed me. She'd built a whole story for him too. Months passed. The divorce finalized. The paperwork closed like a door. One afternoon I ran into her at a grocery store. She looked smaller. Not physically, just reduced. Like the version of herself she'd performed for years didn't have a stage anymore. Our eyes met. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something that would turn the moment into meaning. I didn't give her that either. I nodded once. Nothing warm, nothing cruel, and walked past. No drama, no final speech. Just emptiness where trust used to be. Later, alone in my apartment, I thought back to Eric's party. The laughter, the bright kitchen. Megan smiled like she'd made a clever joke. She wasn't wrong about the first part. I wouldn't have found out on my own. But she'd been wrong about what mattered. Secrets can hide for a while, but patterns leak. Always. And when you finally see the truth clearly, you either stay trapped in it, or you choose freedom.
Subscribe and stay one step ahead of cheaters. And trust me, the next story makes this one look like a fairy tale.